A very warm welcome to Axiom Curb Flux News. On the panel is myself, PJ, Dom, and Blackhole Bridger. First article from myself is the Yarl's Wood. This is I just wanted to die. Asylum seeker detained at Yarl's Wood speaks to RT. Former detainee of Yarl's Wood Immigration Removal Centre has condemned plans to merely improve the service of the facility, arguing the whole system of migrant detention needs to be abolished. Juliet Nantambe, 35, is a Ugandan asylum seeker who came to the UK to escape persecution for being gay. She spent 3 months in Yarl's Wood Immigration Detention Centre last year, an experience she described as horrendous in an in-depth interview with RT. At one point in her 11-week detainment, Nantambe, who has suffered from mental health problems, said she lost all energy and stopped eating because she just wanted to die. The guards don't look at you as a human being. It's true when they say we are animals, she said. Routine abuse from guards causes many detainees, 90% of whom are women, to become depressed or even attempt suicide. Those who go in there without mental health issues end up with mental health issues, Nantambe said. In fact, many detainees already suffer from mental health problems, compounds the human tragedy within Yarl's Wood. According to Crystal Amiss, project coordinator at Black Women's Rape Action Project, 70% of women admitted to facility are rape survivors. Nantambe said detainees who harm themselves do so because they have lost all self-worth. When asked whether she knew anyone who attempted suicide at Yarl's Wood, she said yes, and I was one of them. One time I had given up. I lost all my energy. I stopped eating. I just wanted to die. Guards, half of which are male according to the contractor managing the centre, Serco, closely monitor women and suicide watch. Nantambe said, women are being watched by men all the time. They are watched when they go to the toilet because they try to kill themselves. Accusations of sexual abuse at Yarl's Wood highlight the unacceptable level of sexism among male staff that seems to be tolerated in the institution. In Channel 4's undercover film, guards discuss going into women's room while they're changing. One guard says he received another disciplinary for doing this. He jokes with his colleagues, "How about I just like tits? Sorry, I'm addicted to the viewing of tits." A Yarl's Wood detainee, who goes by the pseudonym Tanja, made a witness statement to the police in 2013 about the extent of sexual abuse at the facility. In the statement, which was seen by the Observer, Tanja described guards engaging in non-consensual oral sex and exposing their genitals. Healthcare provision is also a major problem within the centre. At one point, during her detention, Nantambe, who has diabetes, made a medical appointment. She claims she was overprescribed medication when she was finally able to see someone. A report into migrant detention published by Parliament on Tuesday describes vulnerable people having to wait 10 weeks for a medical appointment. During her time at Yarl's Wood, Nantambe lived in fear she would be sent back to Uganda at any moment. The only assessment they make while a detainee is at Yarl's Wood is to check if you are fit for the deportation flight back home, she said. Homosexuality is illegal in Uganda, where people in the same-sex relations can be sentenced to life in prison. The socially conservative country is also rife with homophobic violence, according to the Sexual Minorities Uganda, meaning there is a real danger to Nantambe's physical health if she returns. According to Amiss, the Home Office never keeps tabs on what happens to the people they deport. BRAP I've called on the government to provide evidence proving the detainees they deport are safe and alive, she said. A G4S Group 4 security officer walks down one of the corridors at Yarl's Wood Immigration Removal Centre, Europe's largest detention centre for illegal immigrants in Bedford. Yeah, it's not a nice place. After detainment and homelessness, migrants and asylum seekers are forbidden by law to work in the UK, meaning those without a support network can become homeless. This is what happened to Samba when she was finally released from Yarl's Wood. She was able to appeal and escape detention with the aid of a self-help guide published by Legal Action for Women. She spent the next month and a half on streets, often sheltering and sleeping in churches. The Home Office finally agreed to offer me accommodation. I applied for it, but they refused initially. That's why I was homeless for 6 weeks, she said. Amiss told RT some women are forced to sleep on night buses and in accident and emergency lounges when they are released from migrant detention centres. An uncertain future is Natamba is still waiting a decision regarding her status as an asylum seeker. Every 2 weeks she makes a 2.5-hour journey to Croydon at a cost of £5, where she signs a register to prove she hasn't absconded. I have another hearing coming on 1st of May. This is going to be a second hearing. I'm not sure what will happen after that. So I can't remember the other student. What's her name now? It's been a while, but she was deported. Can't remember her name, but yeah, this is just one of many. So, you know, her opinion said it should be abolished. Anyway, the next one, IPCC to investigate police cover-up of boys' murder by Westminster Paedophiles. The Independent Police Complaints Commission is to investigate claims that Scotland Yard covered up the murder of a young boy at the hands of a Westminster paedophile ring. They will examine whether corrupt police officers ignored clues related to the death of 8-year-old Vishal Mehta back in 1981. Last November, Vishal's father, retired magistrate Vishamba Mehta, told the Telegraph that police had deliberately covered up his son's killing to protect a network of high-profile child abusers. After his allegations were passed to Scotland Yard, the Met Police launched an internal investigation into historic corruption, which has now been referred to the IPCC. Vishal was abducted as he walked home to Putney, southwest London, after watching the marriage procession of the Prince and Princess of Wales. He disappeared less than a mile away from the notorious Elm Guesthouse in Barnes, where a group of high-profile paedophiles, including MPs, are said to have abused young boys. 6 months later, the young boy's bones were found in a Sussex field. Last December, the Metropolitan Police announced it was investigating possible murders linked to the guest house. The new inquiry was opened when an alleged victim came forward claiming to have witnessed 3 boys being killed, including one allegedly strangled by a Conservative MP during a depraved sex game. In December, Vishal's father, Vishamba Mehta, a retired magistrate, told the Telegraph he had recorded a mystery caller saying his son might have been taken to the Elm Guesthouse. He took the recording to the police at the time but claimed they refused to investigate an allegation implicating judges and politicians. Mr. Mehta said it had been a huge cover-up. After the Telegraph passed his complaint to police, the Met launched an internal probe led by the Forces Directorate of Professional Standards. That investigation has now been handed over to the Independent Police Watchdog, which will decide whether the original case was handled correctly. Speaking to LBC after it emerged that the IPCC will investigate his complaint, Mr. Mehta said, "I was very pleasantly surprised because it seems that somebody is taking things a bit seriously for the first time after 33 years. It was thanks to the media, but something is happening. Whether they uncover something, time will tell. A spokesman for the Met Police said the Met were made aware of a complaint alleging corruption relating to Met Police original missing person investigation into the disappearance of Vishal Mehrotra via the press. This complaint has been referred to the Met Police Directorate of Professional Standards. This matter will shortly be referred to the Independent Police Complaints Commission. Just the latest on that. The next one is the Al-Qaeda member turned spy reveals extraordinary past and inner workings of Islamic State. The story summary: former Al-Qaeda member flipped to become spy for the UK intelligence. Uses knowledge to reveal inner workings of IS. Said IS allows indulgence of psychopathic tendencies. So some recruits radicalized straight out of a nightclub. A founding member of Al-Qaeda who flipped to spy for UK intelligence services has spoken out about his radicalization and revealed the inner workings of the Islamic State in a bid to prevent other young people falling into the same trap. Former militant known as Ayman Dean has opened up to the BBC in separate radio interviews about his extraordinary past. He used his knowledge of the terrorist organisation to blow the lid on IS, saying they are 100 times bigger than anywhere Al-Qaeda was in terms of firepower and financial resources, with a sense of elitist isolationism to allow recruits to indulge psychopathic tendencies. This is the image of him here. Play a few minutes of the radio interview that was on BBC Radio 4.
Constructing their fast workable chemical device. And I think when you hear them talking about this with such glee and such deep psychopathic satisfaction that you can see in their eyes, you say to yourself, why do I have any moral misgivings about spying on you guys?
So you were in Afghanistan and you were coming back and forth to the UK as well?
Yes.
But Al-Qaeda thought they were sending you back to the UK, presumably?
Yes, I think that's the beauty of it.
So they think you're working for them?
Yes.
When you're actually working for the West?
Absolutely.
Meet Ayman Dean, founder member of Al-Qaeda, who now says he was a spy for Britain's security and intelligence services, MI5 and MI6. Our inquiries strongly suggest he's telling the truth. Back in January, I interviewed him for Radio 4's The Report. Ayman Dean analysed the threat of Islamic State, but wouldn't discuss his own Al-Qaeda past. Now he does, talking for the first time about how he became one of the West's most valuable assets in the fight against global Islamist extremism. We'll hear Ayman Dean tell the story of his introduction to the violence of Al-Qaeda, its methods and thinking, and how he eventually turned against jihadi terrorism.
The Prophet Muhammad stated that there will come a time when there will be preachers at the gates of hell. And I think that this statement by the Prophet applies accurately to those people who, while enjoying the benefits of life here in the UK or in Europe or elsewhere, are taking young lives, basically. So that's why I came forward.
Ayman Dean was born in Saudi Arabia, where he first learned English. For a devout Saudi child, and Dean was something of a Muslim theological prodigy, in the 1980s, opposition to the Soviet occupation of Afghanistan made military jihad a noble concept. Everyone around him felt the same. The reason he was later such an important prize for MI5 and MI6 went deeper. The friends and allies he made as a jihadi together comprise a militant Islamist address book, coveted by all Western intelligence. Ayman Dean was the spy who came in from Al-Qaeda. I first asked him about his early life.
It was quite religious. As soon as I was 9, I joined what we used to call at that time an Islamic awareness circle. And that was in the local large mosque that was only about 5 minutes walk from my home. And every afternoon after school, I would just come back home, do my homework, and then around 4 p.m. basically I will just go to the mosque, and that's where the activities of the awareness circle begin.
Ayman Dean formed friendships with other young men who'd later become Al-Qaeda luminaries. One of them was to be Al-Qaeda's leader in Saudi Arabia.
He was a childhood friend, and also at the same time he was a fellow member of the Islamic awareness circle that I was frequenting at the time. I remember we met the first time I was 11, and the friendship continued throughout the years.
At this time, in the early 90s, the military conflict that had captured their imagination wasn't in the Middle East or Central Asia, but in Europe. The splintering of the former Yugoslavia left Bosnian Muslims in particular vulnerable. They faced mortal danger from Serb nationalists who were bent on, in that chilling phrase, ethnic cleansing.
I would say it was the most eye-opening experience I ever had. I was a bookish nerd from Saudi Arabia just weeks ago, and then suddenly I found myself bouncing up on the mountains of Bosnia, holding an AK-47, feeling a sense of immense empowerment. And the feel that I was participating in writing history rather than just watching history. And also at the same time, being in the military training camps, receiving knowledge that I never thought in 1,000 years I would be receiving about warfare and war tactics and military maneuvers, and to be receiving it alongside people from many different nationalities, with the one common factor among them that they were all Muslims, and they were all there in order to participate in the jihad in defense of the Bosnian population, was in itself also an overwhelming experience.
Did you want?
Okay, well, I'll leave it there for meanwhile. So is this guy telling the truth? I think he's making it all up. Leave a comment below. The next one is my final article before I hand it over to Dom for his set. Don't think I've got. Am I actually showing my article? Is it not? No, I don't think it is. There we go.
Yeah.
Okay, right, my final one is Terror 101. Scottish primary school kids given terrorism homework. Scottish school has come under fire for issuing primary school kids homework featuring questions about global terrorist organisations. Children were asked to describe the various tactics of Al-Qaeda, the IRA and Hamas. Children, some as young as 7, at New Stevenson Primary in Motherwell, North Lancashire, were handed worksheets with a cartoon of an exploding bomb. One of the exercises required pupils to consider why Palestinians feel that they have the right to use terrorism against the Israelis. The students were encouraged to give 2 examples of why and to describe 2 of the methods used. Copies of the worksheets were later posted online, provoking complaints from parents and campaigners. Another question, presented in a multiple choice format, involving identifying the 2 most prominent terror groups in Northern Ireland. Pupils were asked to explain the aims of Loyalists and Republicans. A North Lanarkshire, oh sorry, I might have said Lancashire earlier on, so do correct myself there, it's Lanarkshire. Council Learning and Leisure Services spokesperson told the Daily Mail the homework called Terrorism and Terror Case Study should not have been issued and is obsolete. The spokesperson said the council is contacting all schools to ensure this particular material is no longer used. They explained that the project had been part of a social studies programme which was meant to provide pupils with a greater understanding of the nature of different conflicts and their regional, global and historical significance, but does not pass any judgment on the subject. The incident comes only a day after another learning resource designed for use in British schools, this time about the British Armed Forces, was slammed by campaigners and military veterans. The 58-page Armed Forces Learning Resource 2014 was branded a poor-quality learning resource by the authors of a paper criticising the Department of Education initiative. They told RT if this was a warts and all look at the armed forces, it would not be a problem. Instead, it is a glossy promotional brochure that glorifies military values and sanitizes war and has no place in education. So that's my wrap up of what I've got to offer. Any comments from?
Yeah, it amazes me that they're saying there's no bias in this. Well, the loaded question that why do Palestinians think they have a right to bomb the Israelis? Well, that is a loaded question in itself.
I mean, well, you could say it all the way around. Why do the Israelis think that they have the right to bomb Palestinians?
Exactly, whichever way round it's said, it's loaded.
Yeah.
Well, that's all from me. I'll hand it over to you now, Dom.
Yeah, thanks. Well, do you remember the pre-election contract with the electorate that David Cameron signed? The one that he told us to kick him out of power if he didn't stick to it, and the one that he deleted from their website, the other that nobody would ever look it up again. Well,
and the fact he promised us a referendum twice.
Yep. Well, this is the pre-election contract the Tories want you to forget. This is actually Another Angry Voice, a blog by Thomas G. Clark. He's the writer who writes for Another Angry Voice. I think he actually owns it as well, actually. Yeah, we don't get paid for it or anything. But yeah, he says that anyone's free to share the work. Right, anyway, this is the pre-election contract the Tories want you to forget. In 2010, David Cameron and the Tories unveiled a 16-point contract with the electorate which stated, if we don't deliver our side of the bargain, kick us out between 5 years. If you search for this contract on the Tory website, all you'll get is a desperate plea for you to tell them that you're sorry and give them your email list so that they can send you targeted political spam. This that the Tories have realised how badly they have failed to deliver their side of the bargain. Rather than accept that they should now be kicked out by the electorate, they've decided to hide the contracts and hope that everyone has completely forgotten about it. Here's my native version of this Tory contract, which is the Thomas G. Clark's. So, if you want, right, in this article, I'm going to go through the promises made in the so-called contract, providing little more detail that space would allow in the infographic. I'll also provide a number of links to back up the claims I've made in my responses. Change in politics. 1. Recall. Cameron said, give you the right to sack your MP so that you don't have to wait for an election to get rid of politicians who are guilty of misconduct. The right to recall MPs has still not been delivered, and the current proposals are terribly watered down, meaning that MPs will have the final say on whether recall proceedings go ahead, because the decision will be made by the Parliamentary Standards Committee, which is heavily dominated by current MPs. The proposed system has been described as a weak imitation of the recall system used in other countries like the US. Number 2 is the number of MPs and MPs' expenses. Cameron said he would cut the number of MPs by 10% and cut the subsidies and perks of politicians. In reality, the number of MPs has not been cut by 10%, and the amount claimed by MPs in subsidies and expenses is still enormous. In fact, the £103 million claimed in expenses by MPs in 2014 is higher than the amount claimed at the peak of the MPs' expenses scandal in 2009. Number 3, ministers' pay. Cameron said he would cut ministers' pay by 5% and freeze it for 5 years. Cameron did cut ministers' pay by 5%, but then he outsourced all future decisions on MPs' pay to quash the independent body, which then decided that MPs should get a whopping 11% pay rise, whilst the rest of the country suffers ideological austerity. The justification for this huge pay hike was quite extraordinary, relied on the assertions that if MPs weren't given such a big pay rise, they just steal it for themselves by scamming the expense system even more. Number 4, local communities. Give local communities the power to take charge of the local planning system and vote on excessive council tax rises. That's what David Cameron said. Reality. Local government budgets have been ruthlessly slashed, especially for Labour voting authorities, and the Green Party administrated Brighton Council, and the Tories in Brighton colluded with Labour in order to shoot down proposed referendum on a council tax rises. The Tories are now planning to severely limit judicial reviews, which one of the only means left for local people to hold their elected representatives to account. He's about to say anything. Number 5 is transparency. Make government transparent. That's what he said. The Tory-led government has fought a long legal battle to maintain the veil of secrecy of interfering government by Prince Charles. They've also repeatedly refused freedom of information requests over issues like workfare and disability death. The Tories have also strongly opposed proposals to make private outsourcing companies subject to the freedom of information legislation requests relating to government contracts. Changing the economy. Wasteful government spending. Cameron says, cut wasteful government spending so we can stop Labour's job tax, which will derail the recovery. Fear-mongering about Labour's killing the recovery was extraordinarily hubristic stuff, since it was George Osborne's ideological austerity experiment that caused the recovering economy to flatline for several years. Ideological cuts in government spending crashed economic recovery and caused a double-dip recession, which did immeasurable long-term damage to the UK economy. Some of the wasteful government spending that was deliberately splashed by the Tories included flood defence schemes in places that suffered heavy flooding between 2012 and 2014. One of the prime examples being Kendal and Cumbria. What is more, the Tories have done a hell of a lot of wasteful government spending of their own. There was a £75 million wasted on the IPCC election farce, which resulted in the lowest turnouts in UK electoral history. Millions were wasted on subsequent PCC by-elections. The West Midlands PCC by-election set the taxpayer back £3.7 million, which equates to £20 for every vote cast. George Osborne blasted over £1 million in his failed attempt to block the EU from capping bankers' bonuses at 200% of their salary. Eric Pickles spent over £536,000 on ministerial limos to ferry in between Whitehall and Westminster in just 3 years. This sum would have paid for 122,000 return trips on the London Underground between the two destinations, or 426 annual travel cards. Without doubt, the biggest culprit for wasteful government spending, is Ian Duncan Smith, who has blasted hundreds of millions on catastrophic welfare reforms like the dismally failing work programme and the severely delayed and usually over-budget universal credit fiasco. He would have to shell out £130 million more to compensate the victims of his unlawful forced labour schemes, had Miliband and the Labour leadership not colluded with him to pass an appalling piece of retroactive legislation. Yeah. Number 2, with the national debt, but not far. I'm not going to read it all, but you know what I mean. The national debt.
Please do read as much as you can, because we're closing into general election soon. So
yeah, but that's what I mean. If you're going to listen, I'll read it all. That's what I wanted to do. Yeah, the national debt. Cameron said, "Act now on the national debt so that we can keep mortgage rates lower for longer." Despite their promises that ideological austerity will have completely wiped out the budget deficit by now, the government is still borrowing billions a month. In fact, Cameron's government has now created more debt than all of the Labour's government in history combined. The stuff about keeping mortgage rates lower through fiscal policy is a perfect illustration of the economic literacy of the Tories. Low mortgage rates are caused by the Bank of England settling the interest rates at an all-time historic low of 0.5% and keeping it there for 6 long years. Was someone going to talk then? No? Right. If there was any correlation between increasing the national debt and mortgage rates, we should expect mortgage rates to have skyrocketed in the last 4 years as a result of George Osborne increasing the national debt from £811 billion to £1,452 billion. Instead, they remain extremely low due to the monetary policy of the Bank of England. The fact that the Tories printed such abject economic gibberish that confuses fiscal policies with monetary outcomes just goes to show how unfit they are to be running the economy. Number 3, green economy. He said, reduce emissions and build a green economy with thousands of jobs in green industries and advanced manufacturing. After pretending that they were going to be the greenest government ever, Cameron soon U-turned. He cut spending on green energy infrastructure and research. He began promoting fracking, and he even instructed his aides to cut out all the green crap. More benefits. David Cameron said, get benefits from working by giving unemployed people support to get to work, creating 400,000 new apprenticeships and training places over 2 years, and cutting benefits for those who refuse to work. The Tory-led government haven't just cut benefits for those who refuse to work, they've also slashed the in-work benefits used to top up the poverty wages paid by their corporate chums, and now seeing the longest sustained real-term fall in wages since record began. The bit about apprenticeships is just guff. Most of them are unpaid forced labour schemes designed to extract the labour of the individual without recompense in order to distribute it to favour corporations and paying another bunch of corporate parasites thousands of pounds per victim for administering the scheme. Like so many Tories' pronouncements on the social security system, this system is such in Orwellian language. The Tories have been bluntly exploiting the unemployed as a source of free labour for their corporate chums, while telling anyone daft enough to listen that they are helping them. Other examples of Tory help for the unemployed includes the use of sanctions, league tables to drive vulnerable people into absolute destitution. Unlike the severely uneducated and the mentally unwell, the hardcore benefit claimants know exactly what to do to avoid getting sanctioned, and herding them onto corporate screens where they are treated with such contempt that the people who are supposed to be helping them refer to them as lying thieving bastards.
Well, we are, aren't we? So it's double speak with them. They say one thing and do opposite, you know. That's what it means, Orwellian language. Just language that only they can understand.
Yep,
It carries on about interest rates. Well, it's the compound interest.
Yep, number 5, immigration. David Cameron said, control immigration, reducing to levels of the 1990s, meaning tens of thousands a year, not the hundreds of thousands under Labour. Without reforming EU freedom of movement legislation, this was always a completely impossible promise. Net immigration rose 39% to 243,000 in 2013 to 14, despite Cameron's government deliberately discriminating against British families with arbitrary and draconian income requirements that apply only to British citizens with non-EU spouses, while citizens of other EU countries with non-EU spouses can come and go as they please with their non-EU partners. This shocking discrimination against British families has barely been mentioned in the mainstream press, and after introducing these rules designed to break up thousands of British families or force them to live in exile, the rate of net migration to the UK has actually risen. Changing society, the NHS. David Cameron said he will increase spending on health every year while cutting waste in the NHS so that more goes to nurses and doctors on the front line. Despite lots of Tory trickery trying to prove otherwise, it is absolutely clear that spending on the NHS has not been increased every year. 4,000 senior nurses have been sacked in 2010, and frontline staff have endured years of below inflation 1% pay increases. It's also worth noting what they didn't mention about their plans to impose the biggest top-down reorganisation in the history of the NHS, designed to carve it open for privatisation. Since the NHS reforms went through, over 1.5 billion worth of NHS contracts have been handed out to Tory party donors. The former Tory leadership candidate, Michael Portillo, explained this failure to mention the NHS privatisation plan, saying they did not believe they could win an election if they had told you what they were going to do, because people are so wedded to the NHS. Number 2, families. David Cameron promised to support families by giving married couples and civil partners a tax break, giving more people the right to request flexible working, and helping young families with more sure-start health visitors. Well, in reality, the UK continues to have levels of paternity and paternity pay that lag far behind other European countries. We have been far the most expensive childcare in the developed world, and since the Tories came to power in 2010, the number of children growing up in poverty has risen by 300,000. Sure Start funding has been ruthlessly slashed, resulting in the closure of some 600 Sure Start centres. Tax break for married couples represents a tiny fraction of the financial losses due to the longest real terms decline in wages since records began, which has been going on since the Tories came to power in 2010.
Yeah, I remember at Sure Start, you know, it were a lifeline for a lot of mothers and fathers out there as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Number 3, schools. David Cameron promised to raise standards in schools by giving teachers the power to restore discipline, and by giving parents, voluntary groups, and charities the power to start new schools. Well, in reality, the opening part of restoring discipline is empty rhetoric about which nothing has been done. The concluding part is just jargon for their giving away billions worth of public property to unaccountable private sector sward charities. Over 3,000 schools have been simply given away since 2010, many of them to businesses run by major Tory party owners.
Yeah.
Yep. Part is pensions. David Cameron said he would increase the basic state pension by relinking it with earnings, protect the winter fuel allowance, free TV licences, free bus travel, and other benefits for older people. Well, the basic state pension has been relinked with earnings. However, this isn't any kind of victory for pensioners, given that this government has overseen the longest real term decline in wages since records began. The winter fuel allowance was cut in George Osborne's 2011 budget. When the Tory party cut the link to earnings in 1980, basic pension was worth over 25% of the average wage. By the time the link to earnings was restored, it had slumped to well below 20%. UK continues to have one of the stringiest basic state pensions in the developed world.
Yeah, that sums it all up, really. You know,
Yep.
another one.
Number 5, police. Another promise is broken, which he said, fight back against crime, cut paperwork to get more police officers on the street, and make sure criminals serve the sentences given to them in court. Well, over 34,000 police jobs have been cut since 2010. Slashing the number of police work and imposing huge cuts on police budgets would seem like an extremely odd way to get more police officers on the streets. The part above cutting paperwork could be considered a success, as long as you consider the police simply not bothering to record 20% of all reported crimes as an exercise in cutting paperwork rather than an exercise in juking the statistics. So that the terrorists can be set. Yeah, go on, Blackhole.
Well, then they can claim that the crime figure's gone down, you see, under them then, you see.
Yeah, that's what it says here. So that the terrorists can pretend that crime is falling by ignoring all of the reported crimes that the police didn't bother to record.
Well, it's just stupid. I mean, a police officer's main job, first priority, is to try not to, you know, arrest anybody, really. So that cuts that old paperwork there if he does that.
Well, sentencing has not been reformed, so sentences ended out in court are very rarely served in full, which we've seen with Gary Glitter has been given a 16-year sentence, but told he has to serve 8. So, national service. Create national citizen service for every 16-year-old to help bring this country together. National service for every 16-year-old is a terrible idea. So at least in this litany of broken promises, the last one of the 16 is a broken promise that nobody in their right mind would have wanted fulfilled anyway. What Cameron has introduced is a voluntary scheme called National Citizen Service for 16-year-olds, which is not something that can be described as national service. It's voluntary. No, for every 16-year-old, there were only 30,000 places in 2013. Apart from the fact that what has been promised hasn't been delivered, the scheme itself is extremely dubious too. It costs $1,400 per participant, and in the later weeks of the scheme, these kids are expected to work for no wage, doing jobs like cleaning streets, underpasses, maintaining parks, and restoring old buildings. In my view, there would be 2 much more useful ways of spending this money. It could be used to give the kids $1,400 worth of vouchers to help them towards their education costs, or to be used to establish a small business. The money could also be used to create jobs with wage and labour rights to do the work that these kids are doing for free. The wages would then add to demand in the local economy, and the employment would be reduced. The problem with this "let's create real jobs" approach is that the unemployment statistics are so badly doctored nowadays that all of the kids working for free on these schemes are classed as in training, and therefore excluded from the employment figures in the ONS labour market statistics. Thus, if the money was actually spent providing paid jobs, the real level of unemployment would also fall, and the government unemployment statistics would go up, because 1,400 pays for far more wages for 16-year-olds in training schemes than it pays for real people doing real jobs. Conclusion. Given the shocking failure to deliver on promises in this contract, is it any surprise that the Tory party have purged this document from their website in the hope that everyone will forget what they promised back in 2010? Perhaps the Tories imagine that simply deleting this contract from their website will be enough to ensure that everyone forgets the promises they made, and the fact that David Cameron put "if we don't deliver our side of the bargain, kick us out in 5 years" into writing. So,
Excellent stuff, Dom. Good article.
yeah, Elder Anglia Voices is a page-and-fill website. You can have access to all my work for free, or you can choose to make a small donation to help keep me writing tries to tell yours. So this is just full comments here. Just let me this comment on here. Where is it? Oh, yes, he says in that National Citizen Service, he says as a participant, it is not great, but it's not evil like many other things in the party have created. But there was something else. It's not that one actually. And this who created this article is who wrote this article is Thomas G. Clarke.
Yeah, credit to him, Thomas. Good report that.
He writes for Another Angry Voice. It's an article he writes a lot. He does it for free, like.
Yeah, joint Facebook group as well. The page that they've got.
But Cameron lives in cloud cuckoo land. He really does. He has not got his feet on the ground. His hair lives amongst all his billionaire friends.
Yeah, well, he's just lied his all the way through for the last 5 years. He's just lied himself all the way through.
Yeah, absolutely nothing but lies after lies after lies. They just flow out of the guy.
Yep. So yeah, but it's like he's not surprising really, because that's what I expect of him. Really, I don't like him as a criminal. Yeah.
Well, that's probably the most honest thing he's said is, if we don't deliver our side of the bargain, kick us out in 5 years. So everybody make sure that we fulfil those words for him, seeing as he's, not capable of doing it himself.
Well, I think about it, people have forgot, haven't they? He said it, kick us out in 5 years, but we'll see in 2 months' time.
This is the same Cameron that was in the Bulletin Club that used to go around and burn £50 notes in front of the homeless.
He was a bit. What, he burnt them? He said.
Yeah.
Yeah, he burned them in front of the homeless. It was part of their initiation.
Even though it's meant to be illegal to destroy money.
Yeah.
Or to burn it.
Yeah. But it just shows you what he cares about, the poor and the needy. He don't give them a hand up, he pushes them down.
So if you are interested in this, then read Thomas G. Clarke's vlogs, and remember what the Tories said 5 years ago: if we don't deliver our side of the bargain, kick us out in 5 years. Only 2 months the general election is here. Right, moving on. The next article is: I'd love to kill off free banking, says Barclays boss, on 5.5 million a year. Antony Jenkins says fees would be a step forward. The boss of Barclays has called for an end to free banking, claiming the controversial move would be a step forward for customers. Antony Jenkins, who said he would not make the first move in case he scared off customers, was immediately accused of being out of touch. His comments came as the high street giant unveiled another big payday for staff. Mr. Jenkins' total package more than tripled from 1.6 million in 2013 to 5.5 million last year. Asked whether he would approve of free and credit bank accounts being outlawed and charges introduced across the board, he said, "I do think that would be a step forward, yes. It's difficult to achieve, of course, because the banks can't do that. It will probably have to be regulated or legislated. He told ITV News it was unlikely that any bank would make the first move in case it lost business. John Mann, a member of the Treasury Committee, said last night, "He lives in a different world from the rest of us. People on low incomes would suffer. This shows how out of touch Mr. Jenkins is, as so many customers value free bank accounts." Mr. Jenkins came under fire last year when he argued that closing bank branches would lead to a better customer experience, as current account holders are increasingly banking online. James Daly of consumer group Fairer Finance said his latest comments were pie in the sky, adding, "To try and scrap the free and credit banking system we have now would be incredibly unpopular. The government would legislate for it. It would be a vote loser because more people benefit from it than lose out." But Mr. Jenkins has the support of senior regulators, including Bank of England Deputy Governor Andrew Bailey, that's the name you see on the banknotes, he supports it. What's called free banking a dangerous myth, partly due to the confusing Gary of extra charges for the millions who go overdrawn. Supporters of packaged accounts, which can cost around £15 a month and typically include perks such as travel insurance, also claim banks will be less likely to mis-sell the products. But latest figures from the Financial Ombudsman show complaints from customers who believe they were mis-sold packaged accounts have soared. Royal Bank of Scotland last week revealed it set aside £150 million to compensate customers mis-sold packaged accounts. The row came as Mr. Jenkins was forced to defend his decision to accept a £1.1 million bonus for last year, despite cutting 14,000 jobs. The 53-year-old insisted the decision was appropriate, saying, "You have to look at the very significant progress we made in the 2.5 years that I've been chief executive." Barclays set aside almost £1.3 billion to pay likely fines for rigging the £3.5 trillion a day foreign exchange market. This helped drag down profits by 21% to £2.3 billion. Spokesman for the Robin Hood tax campaign said, "Bonus season has again been dominated by pay controversies, scandals and fines, underlining that toolist reform has taken place." So that's him. So he wants to charge you for using your bank account.
We should charge him fines, likely fines. That's it. This is it, Don. That's as far as it goes with these people. Fines, and the money that they pay for this fine is our money. It's in first place. So it just infuriates me. It does.
Yeah, they got buoyant on our money. Now they're that buoyant, they want to shove us underwater.
Yeah, the great energy rip-off. 3 in 4 households are being charged more than if firms put them on cheapest tariff. This is actually another promise that David Cameron broke. In 2013, it says here the Prime Minister pledged to force suppliers to put all customers on best deal, which I remember him saying himself, said that he put all customers on the cheapest tariff. Well, it's a lie. 3 in 4 households are paying up to £250 a year more on gas and electricity than they have to, official figures reveal. Most families are still on their energy firm's standard variable tariffs 2 years after David Cameron promised to force suppliers to put all customers on the best deal. The standard packages are £180 a year more expensive than the cheapest tariff, with some customers paying nearly £250 a year more. So it says 3 in 4 households paying up to 250 more gas. They have to because they're on standard tariff, variable tariff rather than the cheapest deal. So this is the standard variable tariff is what's that? 1,156 British gas, but you can get a cheapest tariff for £950. Then you can see yourself, yeah. EDF.
Just boycott the big six. Don't take no notice of these. Look for these other ones out there. There's many other ones where they're offering better deals than these. And don't stay with them too long either. You know, keep popping, but don't use any of these big six. Get rid of them.
Well, Shadow Energy Secretary Caroline Flint said Mr. Cameron promised 17 times in the House of Commons to make energy suppliers automatically put all customers on the supplier's lowest tariff. She said, more than 2 years after David Cameron promised to make energy companies put all customers on the lowest tariff, millions of households are still being routinely overcharged by hundreds of pounds every single year. That's why the next Labour government will freeze energy prices until 2017, so that bills can fall but not rise. Give the regulator more power to force energy suppliers to cut their prices and end overcharging once and for all. Last month, the Competition and Markets Authority released early findings of an inquiry into the sector that the Big Six were overcharging millions of loyal customers by £234 a year.
Well, I'm sorry, but Ed Miliband's proposal on the energy freeze is just a load of nonsense. Pay no attention to that.
Well, his findings showed 95% of the UK's 19 million dual fuel customers, I'm a dual fuel customer myself with British Gas, those who take gas and electricity from the same company could have saved between £158 and £234 by switching tariff or supplier. So I have to look into that myself. The CMA found the Big Six have consistently charged higher prices for standard variable tariffs than for other deals such as fixed tariffs. Energy UK Chief Executive Lawrence Slade said, "Standard variable tariffs are just that, the standard price the company is offering energy to customers. Part of the cost of energy is ensuring that the gas and electricity has been brought months in advance, making sure energy will be available to customers when it is needed. New fixed price deals will also be able to take advantage of short-term changes in cost and usually offer lower prices than standard deals, often for a year or two. However, the important thing for customers to remember is there are a wide range of deals available in the market. If a customer thinks they might be able to save some money by switching tariff or company, they should look onto a comparison site or call their supplier. We don't want them to be putting commission-only deals on, aren't they? They've been exposed. Anyway, Ofgem Chief Executive McDonald said, "While recent price cuts are a step in the right direction, many customers could be better off to the tune of up to £250 by moving from a variable rate to a fixed rate deal. If you're not sure where to start, then I'd strongly recommend the Be an Energy Shopper website for an independent and impartial guide." So if you're not sure, go there.
Yeah, go and pay these guys 20, 30, 40 quid to do it for you.
The next spokesman said, "Our reforms to drive down household bills are working and the best energy tariffs are cheaper than they were a year ago. But people want to see more savings now, and the power is in the armour either because people are saving money because last year they brought in standing charges. So how can people be saving money?"
Well, when it goes on about dual fuel, well, I'd say it's a duped fool.
Yeah, well, it's a scam. People are losing money. Yeah, they're being ripped off because they're putting on an higher tariff than what they need to be. And also standing charges are coming, which increase your bill by, well, on my last bill, it increased my bill by 100%. It doubled my bill, doubled.
Well, you shouldn't have to pay anything in my mind. Paid before, so you shouldn't have to pay again.
So if you're a customer of one of these, look at what you might be saving. If you're with Bishkash, you could save all that. So it's worth checking out. Right, last article it's a video. It's what a McDonald's commercial should look like. It's quite good in this one, so I thought you ready.
Yeah. Let's renationalise the Big Six and all the banks, by the way.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's play this.
I just want to say I'm so excited for this opportunity. I've loved McDonald's my entire life. I remember when I was a kid, my parents were...
That's great. We're just doing this for legal reasons, so let's just get this over with.
Yummy, it's McDonald's Chicken McNuggets. All white meat, boneless, factory farm chicken treated with vaccines and hormones.
Cut, just read the ingredients. Don't tell them about the factory farm stuff.
Yummy, it's McDonald's Chicken McNuggets. Chicken, water and salt, enriched flour, yellow corn flour, bleached wheat flour, baking soda, cornstarch, wheat starch, modified food starch, dextrose, riboflavin, folic acid, spices, and thiamine mononitrate, which can lead to severe liver damage.
Cut!
Niacin, citric acid, reduced iron, calcium lactate, sodium phosphate, sodium acid pyrophosphate, phosphate, sodium aluminum phosphate, monocalcium phosphate, all of which are linked to chronic kidney disease, weak bones, and premature death. Why don't you guys just make it out of chicken? Autolyzed yeast extract, which is basically MSG, natural flavoring, which can mean anything, safflower oil, vegetable oil, and hydrogenated soybean oil with TBHQ, a chemical preservative, which is a form of butane and is linked to stomach tumors. And finally, dimethylpolysiloxane, which is a silicone that's used in cosmetics and breast implants and silly putty and to treat head lice. Yummy. McDonald's, eat like a champion.
Take a bite of the McNugget.
No way. Good that though.
Well, it says, I didn't know, I hadn't heard about it, but it says here, recently McDonald's had to recall 1 million chicken McNuggets because they had vinyl in them. So,
how much actual
vinyl in chicken McNuggets? Hard to get in it. Like he says on that video, why can't they just make it out of chicken?
They're off their heads, aren't they?
Oh, dear.
Bloody Ronald McDonald.
Oh, dear.
Hey,
That's
good
all from me anyway.
That's all from me. Thanks for joining us. Do join us again tomorrow for some more Flux news. Catch you later.
Bye now.